Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That 80s Child, the Generation Y. And my name is Gabrielle. So I just want to thank all of the people who have been listening to my podcast for the past, I'd say, month, because I have been posting, at least with the three episodes that I did have been very consistent. So I'm trying to do the same. And I've been getting quite a bit of listen. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please make sure to follow on Spotify. I think I only have 17 followers, but I have a lot more listeners than I do followers. So unless it's, not up your alley. So this episode, I had originally re-recorded an episode that I did live, but I forgot that I had taken the audio off and uploaded it as a proper podcast. The only one I didn't do was the Nostalgic Gaming versus Today's Gaming with Bryce. So that's going to be redone. But I did the other one that I had already uploaded, and I'm like sitting there like, what a waste of time. Then I'm thinking, let me listen and see if this one's better. But nah, I'll just leave it up. It's fine. I don't really like it, but it'll do. It's all right. So this one, I had made a list of different subjects that I wanted to cover, because nostalgia can come in very varying forms. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the clothing, the cars, the music, although that is a big part of how we relive those times, because they bring back all, those wonderful memories. And that nostalgic feeling, that fuzzy, warm feeling that we get when we think of the things that we loved back in the day. I wanted to do them in a type of order because I felt like there's ones that are better as like an ending episode for the actual season, which I'm not entirely sure. Like, do I want to do seasons? Because I see people who do podcasts and it's just a continual, like, this is episode 523 of this podcast instead of seasons, because it's not like it changes, at least for me. So I might leave them as seasons at the moment. Maybe like give myself like a little bit of a break, like for a week or something, like I need it. So yeah, these are all my thoughts. I hope you're following along with my random thoughts. So I made this list, and there was a few that I'm like, I still want to hold on to. I still think that's a good idea, but I don't think it's like a good idea in the scheme of sequence. So I'm going to, I came up with another one that kind of covers a little bit. So I don't have a lot of notes on this. It was just kind of like some highlighted things. But this is called the family dynamic. Now, this will be nostalgic for probably some of you, if not all of you. At least some points might be nostalgic for you. It'll be mainly like discussing some things that have changed over the years. My family dynamic will be different than yours. Obviously, there's going to be differences. We're not all the same. So I hope I'm going to try not to be bitter, but I feel like as a millennial / zennial, which, side note, I've been watching a lot of these, the reels or the stories or stuff like that. And like the ones that have been shared from TikTok. I don't go on TikTok as much, and that's even if it's going to still be available after this vote, that they're like showing you the differences in, even though we're making more money than the baby boomers, like our parents, and how much of a difference. And they're like, oh yeah, and like in 2019, when the millennials will turn 30, and I'm like, what? I turned 30 in 2013. So what? So it's different because my brother is that age. He's a 6-year difference to me. So I think he's like more of that millennial side. And like I keep saying, like, I don't like the word millennial. I don't like that classification of who they say the people who are born between whatever. So there's that other like kind of like niche area where it's like the Zennials, where they're from like 1980 to 1983 or 85. It depends. So technically, or untechnically, or whatever the definition is that people are coming up with, we're that in between. Anybody born within that in 83 that is like me, or in and around those bordering years. So yeah. But definitely we're Gen Y regardless, but it's just that millennial title. All right, so family dynamic. I come from a rather large Italian family on both sides of my parents. Now, Ancestry has kind of proven over time as it's updated its database, and I put in for like just because I'm interested in that. I love Ancestry, I love history, I love knowing where I came from and all that stuff. That I had believed. Okay, so my dad's parents, so my grandparents, came over from Italy. And my dad was much older. He was born in 1928. So there was a good deal of a difference in age between my mom and my dad. So his parents came over. They were born in Italy and they came over and immigrated over here. And, saying that, knowing where your grandparents they came from is like, okay, well, we're Italian. My dad was Italian. Both of his parents came over. So the Cataldi last name and my grandmother's maiden name is Liglacy, so it's like they're Italian. My mom's side, her mom is a Caruso. I don't know a lot of the details on her mom's side, to be honest with you. Like, did they come over on the boat? Were they here longer? I don't know. Her dad was adopted. Him and his brother were in an orphanage, I found out. But I think the last name that they had was indeed their last name. I think. It's harder when, they don't have like the parents and they've been adopted by I don't know. So anyway, I was told that my mom's dad was German. Okay, so Italian, German, mostly Italian, because you're looking at all these Italian names and you're like, okay, Italian. Obviously American. I'm 100% American with the heritage, blah, blah, blah. But as the years have progressed and I got onto Ancestry and they looked at all the details, my mom is very, very little Italian. So I think she's got like something like maybe like 15% Italian. Now, my dad was like, massively Italian, but he also had some French, apparently. So every time I go on there, I check back, and I'm not German at all. My mom has German, but I'm not. So I'm mostly Italian, yeah. Like 60% or something like that, or 58. I think it's getting less and less, but it's like 50-some% Italian, and then it's like, then it goes to French, and then it goes Greek. So it's a little bit of a difference in what I had assumed. I didn't know we had any Greek in us at all. So, but it's the Mediterranean, so a lot of different back and forth. Whoever, I don't know. I need to go a little bit further in that history. I haven't really had a whole lot of time on my hands with everything going on. So, family dynamic has been a little odd, at least on my part. So let me explain. My airing out some family drama. Okay, well, whatever. So my dad and my mom were 22 years difference in age. My dad was part of the silent generation, and my mom is a baby boomer. And my dad was married prior to meeting my mom. He had 3 kids. One of them is actually older than my mother. And he had him when he was 18, I think. I think my dad was 18, so he was young. And, I don't know a lot of the family dynamic at that point. Obviously, I wasn't alive, and my dad was not very forthcoming with information about his past, unless it was like, we talked about him being a photographer in World War II. His, interests in the collections for the coins and his jewelry stuff that he did. So I found out a lot of like different things. But when it came to like personal relationships and stuff like that, I guess it's just the time that he was, his old school. So it wasn't something that they sat down and like, let's share. That's not how it was. My mom, on the other hand, was very much an open book with anything. You asked her a question, she'll tell you. And she wouldn't spare too much on the details either. So, it was like, I think that was a reason why in the beginning, the reason like my dad was like attracted to my mom, because he was a very, he had a great sense of humor, but he was a very stern man, to the point where you wondered if he had that possibility of like, do you know how to laugh, or are you just there to intimidate me because that intimidation is working? And he was a very intimidating man. If you didn't know him personally, he could be kind of scary. So, but I'm not going to go into the greatest detail, but my dad met my mom when she was working at Pennsylvania Hospital, and he did construction. He was a superintendent for RM Shoemaker in Philadelphia, and he was helping to redo a wing or something, or I don't know, something was being built onto the hospital. And he would come in and he'd like talk to my mom because she was like in the front. She was like, I don't think she was like the receptionist, but she was definitely like in the front area. She was like there for like 13, 14 years. So she was there for a while. And this was in 1976, 75, 76. I actually have no idea the exact date. And I can't really ask my mom now because she can't remember my birthday, let alone, maybe she might know. I guess I could ask, but I don't want to upset her either, because asking them questions is not a good thing, especially if they can't remember. So you don't want to press it. It just upsets them. Anyway, that's probably something I should have asked. She did tell me. But yeah, anyhow, so it was in the 70s. I want to say early mid 70s. And they met and they started talking a lot, and they started to go out for a lunch, grabbing like a drink or whatever. And it turned into a relationship. Now, mind you, my dad was still married at the time. I'm not going to go into detail as to what I heard from my mom about that relationship, because I don't know if any of my half siblings listen, and I'm not bad mouthing anybody on here. So there's that. So they started to date, I guess. And my mom was essentially the mistress. My dad had gotten a freaking house that she lived in. It was like, your typical that story about like the mistress he has another life. I don't condone this at all, and I am a product of said extracurricular activity. However, I was a product after his first wife passed, so not my fault. It's not my fault, period. Anyhow, so the dynamic that I have with my family is a little weird, because I think all of my dad's brothers philandered at some point. I don't know if it's like just an Italian thing or just our family thing. It was kind of known, and I don't agree with it. I don't like that. I don't like that idea. I'm not for that, but my mom is one of them, So anyway, so they got married. They got married like less than a year then after his first wife died. I think I know when they got married. They got married in 81. I was born in 83. So again, I know that some family members, I have like that feeling of just like you're that other family, and the spawn of Satan, of sinfulness. Yeah, you can kind of feel like a little bit like of spurnment, because me and my brother were products of that other relationship, and some of them probably don't like us. Now, I don't know about like extended family, because you have to figure. So the family dynamic is a little bit different on my end. So if you had a great relationship with your family and continue to do so, obviously that could, past actions of my parents caused any of this. At least on my dad's side. Not my mom's side, has no excuse for a lot of things. So we'll go on for that. Anyhow, so large Italian family, and old school Italians, because you have to figure these are the ones that were born in the 20s, grew up during the Depression, was in World War II, and just think black and white. That's what it was. And in Philly. So if you were in that area, they lived in like Fishtown area, Philly, I believe. And so it's just like, just think of it back in those days. You had the Italian section, the Irish section, and all that lovely stuff. So, that is how they lived. So growing up with a very large Italian family, and I'm talking on my dad's side, my mom's side we'll go into, okay? And this is going to be more of like an about me stuff and some nostalgia kind of like sprinkled in there. So have fun listening to this nonsense of a life that I have had so far. We would have lots of company. Now, when we lived in Southampton, where, my dad had built that house, I believe, or at least helped build the house that they lived in, and that's where my half siblings grew up and, moved out. Or got kicked out because my mom was there. I don't know how that happened. So I laugh, but I laugh because out of nervousness, because I have no idea, like, all that dynamic on that. So I grew up in that house until I was 6 years old. Then we moved. So my home, although I was born in Philly, lived in Southampton for 6 years, my home is technically Hamilton, New Jersey. That's where I lived 28 years of my life, and that's what I can remember. I can remember little bits and pieces of the other house in Pennsylvania, but not enough to be like, that's my home. My home will probably always be that farm that we no longer have. And I will be forever depressed about that. So we always had company over, even when we didn't live that close. We had family that lived in New Jersey, hence the reason why my dad moved to where we moved, because my Uncle Jimmy had a car dealership in that area. And if you've ever been to Hamilton, New Jersey, it's a very large influx of Italians. It's just like it's a red zone of Italians. So I don't know if that's the reason. I have no idea why there specifically. I was not privy to that information at 6 years old, although it would have been nice to have known, like, why the hell did you do this? Like, there were so many other better places to go. No offense, Hamilton, but I'm just saying. But, hindsight 2020, and I'm older and wiser, sort of, maybe. So we would have people come over, and even unexpected company. So I don't know if you guys know that comedian who's Italian who always talks about, like, the Entenmann's, having something available. So, like, when people come and they have, like, a spread of food when you come in. Especially when you're Italian, it's always about the food. At least that's why I'm fat. I don't know. So we would have people come in and, like my dad being of the old school and my mom kind of being like the dutiful wife. And I will say, like, she never really much argued with my dad in the sense of, like, if he wanted to do something, she wasn't like, why? She didn't really question. She was always like that go with the flow type of person. That's probably another reason why my dad liked her, because she was a free spirit and he wasn't used to that. And she was always a very charismatic individual, kind of can bring anybody in and feel comfortable and loved and listened to. And that's just how she was. Here I am trying to, like, give them excuses for doing what they did. Bastards. Anyway, so we always had company coming over, whether it be my uncles, my cousins, anybody else, and especially, like, a lot of to do with, like, my dad's friends that he picked up along the way. My unofficial uncles, I had 2 of them that weren't actually my uncles, but you called them uncle, which kind of is kind of weird now when you think about it. And you're like, that's kind of weird. But the one, my Uncle Louis, he was like a childhood friend for years, so he was pretty much a brother anyway. So that's, and he was always very, very nice. Like, none of them that I had any issues with. They were your typical Italian family, and they had reunions every year or so. So I don't know how much of a reunion it is if you're seeing each other every year anyway. But it was so nice to kind of, like, connect, because I feel like today, and this is the correlation that I'll be making between then and now, is today we're very much disconnected. Now, I do know that there are people, and I see them because I see it on Facebook. Now, granted, what you see on Facebook is the best of the best. You're never going to see any, like, negatives unless you go onto my Facebook, and you will see a lot of negatives because I don't care. I'll share all my shit on there. They will show, like, the family getting together, like Easter, Christmas mornings, or Christmas with their family and like extended family and stuff like that, or like, just hanging out for like a summertime thing or going on vacation together. So I will see that on their Facebook. Now, whether it's consistent, whether it's all the time, I don't know. And it's not everybody. I can tell you like on my one hand how many families actually still do that. And that's not a lot. There's not a lot. There's not as many as you think. And I think that's a lot to do with the way that we communicate now, especially because, the cell phones, the ease of access to just send a text. Kind of like what I was saying on the Christmas mornings, that we would get phone calls saying, wishing us a happy holiday and whatever. And now it's just like you might get a post on your Facebook page or a text message. No cards anymore, no phone calls, and no special attention when it is a special day, even on birthdays, because I would get calls on my birthdays, So it's just like, I think while social media makes it easier for us to contact those that we may not have always been able to, communicate with at a distance, it shouldn't make it obsolete for us to have face-to-face contact. Yes, people are busy. Yes, people are holding down jobs and trying to pay bills. Everything's so damn expensive anymore. We don't really have a lot. I don't feel like we have a lot of normal downtime, especially like, you come home from work. The last thing you want is someone knocking on the door and be like, hey, we came for a visit. Where's that Entenmann's cake? No, go away. And that's why nobody answers the door. And you kind of like, try and find a way to not have to answer. Anyway, so yeah, it's just like a whole thing where, we're not seeing them anymore. And most of the older generation in my family have since passed, because they were, they led hard lives, they smoked or whatever. And, it's just that, they're getting old and they're no longer here. So most of my uncles, except save one, is dead. So, my dad's side of the family I know some of the cousins, the older cousins. Now, like I said, because I am a lot younger than, if you think about it, you have brothers and sisters. I have two brothers and one sister. That was from my dad's first marriage. So half siblings that had kids and had kids way before I was even in existence. So my nieces and nephews, except for one, are much older than me. So I was born already an aunt. So the cousins were, how like families usually, and especially like cousins, usually are like really close because the siblings of your parents kind of have kids around the same time or, within a year or two or whatever. So you're around the same age and they become like your best friends or like, a brother from another mother sort of thing, And so I didn't have like that closeness in the sense of it being like more like a sibling rather than like a cousin relationship. I just classified them as like, these are my extended relations. Be respectful. They were nice. And that was it. I really didn't have that close of a relationship that I think a lot of people do. It was kind of difficult to relate to anybody because they were so much older. So it was, they were related. We had a good time when they visited, but that was really it. So my dad's side of the family, we had really, really close relations with the uncles and the aunts and, always so nice, always loved it. I miss that. I wish that my son had that. But, things have changed. Like I said, the family dynamic is very much of a different, animal now. As I've gotten older, the communication with my family has very much gone quiet. And even with my half siblings who would come and visit, well, except for the eldest, my sister and my one brother, we saw less of them, especially after my dad died. I pretty much, my one half brother would come and visit up until a point, and then our house was becoming a disarray anyway and falling apart because we couldn't afford to be there. It was, like I said, it was a hellscape. I was living in a hellscape. And they eventually no longer came. So we just didn't see anybody. And on my mom's side of the family, She was still, I don't know how old your parents are. Obviously, maybe you had older parents like I did. My mom was, how old was she? She was 32 when she had me. Going to be 33 in like 2 months. And then she was 38 when she had my brother. So she was older even then for having kids. So I still had like older, my mom's sister had children at 18, 19 years old. So they were older than me. So even my cousins on that side, and her brother passed away before I think he was only in his 20s. Yeah, it was a sad thing. It was drug related, if you care to know. Unfortunately. And it was just tragedy everywhere. Didn't know her dad. He died when he was in his 40s. Her mom was a piece of work, that's for sure. And I didn't know my grandparents on my dad's side because they were much older. I think my mom knew his mom, Lucy, but she died, I think, like a year after they got married. So I never got to meet her either. So I didn't really have grandparents to spoil me. My dad and my mom spoiled me enough. There was no need to have that. I did get things from my mom's mother. Not that the grandparent has to be there to do that, but like people they have this special relationship with grandparents, and I just never really had that. I never really had a special relationship. My mom's mom was very odd. She was pretty selfish. The way that my mom was raised was not great, and that's a whole other story altogether. Yeah, it's just been like a really weird thing. So my mom's side of the family, I didn't even know really beyond her sister and her kids. That's it. I really didn't know too much else, but there was times when we met some of the cousins, but they didn't have that close of a relationship. I don't know. I knew her couple of her aunts and the one uncle, but my dad's family was pretty much my family. I didn't really have too much of a close relationship with my mom's side. It was very odd. So my family dynamic is a little different. I don't know if you have the same type of family dynamic or just as messed up, please leave a comment. I'd very much like to know, where I land on this ridiculousness that is family. Siblings. Now, half siblings are still actual siblings, but they were much older than me, so I really didn't classify them as look at my brother. This is my sister. They're 60 years old. They had so I have my brother, and we had a good relationship as we grew up until a point. After my dad passed, a lot of things kind of just went down a really steep slide, going a million miles an hour, to which we couldn't react as fast as we would have liked to react. And my brother made some poor decisions, and I made decisions that caused my decision wasn't the reason why it caused the rift. It was his own decision, but I made the decision of cutting ties, just because of the fact that we were already suffering enough with a lot of other things, and he was just causing way more drama and issues that we did not need. So as much as it was to the dismay of my mother, I just said, no, we can't have you here. We can't do this. We can't afford you. And we have enough stuff going on. So unless you're here to help, then you need to leave otherwise. So I didn't really have I haven't had a greatest relationship with my brother for years now. It's getting a little bit better, but we have been away from each other, not as long as we've lived with each other, but it's getting close, actually, I think. How old is he? How old am I? My son was 5 when, I knew I was with Mike longer than that. But anyway, it's been 12 years. Yeah. Almost 13 now, come August. He's a different person. There's things, he's lived out in the Midwest, and there are a different breed of people altogether. And if you are in the Midwest, I apologize, but it is definitely a different world. I have not been out there, but I have talked to enough people that have been out there that it is definitely a different way We are much on the East Coast. We are very much like, let's go, let's go, let's go. We have to be really fast. People in Philadelphia, they talk a million miles an hour. I used to be able to talk a lot faster, but I have slowed down. New Jersey's a little slower in their speaking, but still needs to be fast paced to get things done. And if you don't are fast, that's an impatience going. City living, even though I didn't live in the city for very long. I wish I never had to, but here we are. So the family dynamic, your parents, they led their life in the house, or they went out, and you guys were outside and we were playing, right? You and your sibling, your cousin or whatever, you were outside. You very rarely spent as much time as I feel that kids spend with their parents nowadays. Not that I'm saying that's a bad thing, but I feel like, you go out and you go play, but, people don't, you don't want to keep an eye on your kids, right? But they, just go play, and then, just make sure you come back when it's dinner time, or like people say when the lamp posts go on, right? So it's like, it's a lot different now. I feel like the kids are very much, I don't want to say they're coddled, but definitely coddled. I don't want to say coddled, but I'm definitely coddled, right? That makes so much sense. I'm a hypocrite right there. They are coddled by their parents. Doing things with their parents is kind of like the number one thing, and then it's like with cousins when they're together. So you're still with the family unless they're having a sleepover, but you're then still with the aunt or uncle, right? And it's just like, I don't think it's as free as it used to be. And you're very much watched, which is a good thing because you don't want something to happen to the kids. But I don't know. It's not like things didn't happen back in those days. It's just, maybe it's just because we know about everything so quickly now that it's just become so much of an issue to, like, now we're just hyper aware, Not that I'm saying like just go ahead and go out and then have fun, and then if it happens, it happens, like it would have back in the day. But you don't want it, so you're trying to be hyper vigilant. But I don't know. I feel like not having to spend as much time with your parents gives you that sense of independence, individuality, and self-preservation. When you are so much, even my son, okay, because he was homeschooled. Is being homeschooled. He doesn't have a whole lot of people outside of the house other than myself and my mom, but that's kind of changed a lot since. It's definitely a different thing for him, and I can't say I haven't coddled him either, because I always want him to have what I used to have. I wanted him, and that's never going to happen because I can't afford that now, but that I really do think that that's the issue, the underlying issue with kids these days. These kids these days, shaking my fist in my rocking chair outside, get off my lawn. I think that sense of independence, that sense of, as much as you want to say that now, it's just like you can be whoever you want to be, whatever you want to be, and identify as whatever you want to be. And you might think that that's classified as some sort of freedom, but I feel like that putting more labels on things puts more shackles on things. When you have to, what are you? You go in and you're like, well, what are you? Does it matter? Do I have to label it? And yeah, we had labels. You had labels in high school. Are you the popular kid? Are you the jock? Are you the freak? Are you the nerd? Are you the pothead and stuff like that? But at the same time, like, within that time, within those groups, you had your own freedom and your own individuality within that. You weren't encompassed in just that one area. Now I just feel like it's just, there's so much that you have to like bow down to be able to be who you are, what you think you are, that I think you still are lost. And I think the kids are lost because they're like, I don't even know what the hell, I don't know what's happening right now. And the parents is like, yeah, go do it. You need to have some guidance. And, like if my son came up to me and started asking me questions about, I would be full on truthful with him. And then I'd be like, but in the end, it is up to them. I'm not going to stop anybody from doing what they need to do or what they feel right is to do. But I think there's very much of a lack of stern direction. Now, maybe it's coming from me because I had an old school father, and I'm not saying like, smacking the kid is a good thing, but having that sternness instead of just like, let's go in the downstairs in the talking section and let's have a talk about it. And yes, talking is good. I'm all for talking, obviously. But there's a point where that talking is not going to do diddly squat because it's going one ear and out the other. So I think that there's like a level somewhere. This is the most I will ever get into like this stuff. Because I firmly believe that there's a level that you're a parent. You have to teach good and bad and like right and wrong and morals, and it's just like, that's kind of, some of it is going by the wayside of just, telling the kids that they have that freedom that to a degree shouldn't be allowed that much freedom because there's, you're still immature. Your brain is still growing. You are still trying to understand the world. I'm 41. I'm still trying to understand the world, So giving a 10-year-old or even younger the freedom of making any decisions that are like lifelong or just decisions in general, right? Kind of it seems ridiculous, actually. Sounds like going to a 5-year-old and being like, so should we put $10,000 down on whatever this stock is? What do you think? Because that will gamble away this money. And you're not allowed to gamble unless you're 21, but you're allowed to gamble somebody's life decisions at 5 years old. I don't get it. But anyhow, okay, setting that aside. So yes, family dynamic has definitely changed. I think social media, digital age has changed it, as well as the dynamic of money, how we have to work, how hard we have to work just to get things done or ends to meet, right? Also, the dynamic will definitely be different if you have like older parents, younger parents, no parents, things will be different depending on obviously your background. But I feel like when I grew up, and I think we all kind of grew up, vast majority of us grew up with a sense of like that camaraderie, that comfort, that hug that we felt when we came home and our parents were there. It was that security for me. And I know that there are people that didn't have that. They might have had a really bad home life. And I am so sorry that you had to ever deal with that, because I don't think I would have been able to survive school if I didn't have somewhere that I felt safe to go home to, because my parents were great people. And yes, my dad, I got beat, but I had a smart mouth. I like to have the last word. That I don't classify that as something that would give me some sort of like PTSD or trauma. It made me who I am, where I'm like, yeah, okay, there's a level to where I can I need to stop. Do I always? No. But it definitely helped me to learn where there's like the boundaries. And I think that's something that isn't around as much anymore. So I think it's changed a lot. I miss it. I wish that I was able to give that to my son, even though I didn't really talk a whole lot about my mom's side of the family. Maybe that'll be another thing. I'll go into like other family dynamic on my mom's side. I only kind of touched upon a little bit of her stuff. I'm just thinking, I only put it, literally my notes are like 4 lines long, and I'm like, just wing it, which I'm doing. Yeah, and all it said was Italian family, mentioned ancestry, how unscheduled company was a thing, playing outside was expected, and then communication versus like digital versus face-to-face. So yeah, it's been like a minute for me to actually have like a full family dynamic that I remember. I don't think I would ever be able to offer what I had to my son, because I don't have as a large of a family sphere than I did, because most of them are dead, or I'm literally not connected to these people at all anymore. Some of the cousins, the older cousins, may remember me and my mom, and they'll remember my dad, obviously, but their kids, they don't know me from Adam. So to introduce my son to that, I don't think would be especially now as late in life, if he feels that he wants to reconnect with any of the family, that is entirely up to him. But I'm kind of done with that drama. I don't need it. I don't really, I say I miss it. I say I wish I still had it, but at the same time, I feel like it's just like too much work for me right now because I got so much of this stuff to go on. But at the same time, I don't have the help like from my mom. Like if you have a larger family and you have other people who might be able to assist you when you have like a loved one that needs care, you could probably like, share that responsibility. I don't have that. My brother isn't giving me, like, granted, like I said, he lives in Missouri, so he's like halfway across the United States. There's no way that I could share that responsibility, but he also doesn't help emotionally either, like to ask. I don't know. So I said I was going to try and not be as bitter about things. I'm not so much bitter as I was before when it comes to like my extended family, because they don't know me. Like I said, they don't know a lot of what's going on. Although I know that they see the things on Facebook. I'm friends with them on Facebook. So, and like I said, my Facebook page, I'm not all like rainbows and butterflies. Look how great this is. Some of them say, and at that moment it was great. And then the next moment I'm like, my life's falling apart, and I will tell you. And I'm not in the very beginning, I used to be those ones that were like the fishers for compliments, or like, what's wrong? And you just kind of like put like a statement out like, life sucks. I can't believe this just happened. And then leave no indication as to what was it that happened. I don't do, like now, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I'll give you a nice little dissertation as to what the fuck's going on. So it's like, you'll know. I share, I'm a sharer. Or I don't share enough. There's some things that I don't share with people, but for the most part, like what's going on with my mom and like this, I'll share. It's not a big deal. It's my life, whatever. I have nothing to hide. As shitty as it is, I have nothing to hide. Yeah, so nostalgia has been a forefront of my life, where I'm dragging past things. I'm trying to stop doing that because my life has been mostly full of like trials and tribulations, but I really do enjoy like going back and thinking of like the good things. That's why I like doing this podcast. That's why I like talking about like all the great things that we had. One of the episodes that I want to do, which, teaser, was what Gen Z, so like my son, classifies as nostalgic. Like, what do they, because like, there are times when he'll say like, oh yeah, I remember that when I was little, and I'm like, you're what? You're not even that old. Stop it. So, but I'm interested to see what he would classify as a nostalgic thing for a Gen Z. And I'm sure we're going to start seeing that on TikTok and Reels and all that stuff because, we're already into the 90s. So and I see people posting about early 2000s. And for me, I'm like, that's only 20 years ago. But then again, at the same time, people were being nostalgic of the 70s when we were in the 90s. That was only 20 years ago. So we're there. So I'm interested to see what he classifies as nostalgic. He's going to be 18 in August. So, we'll see. We'll see what he says. And I kind of want to like evolve this channel. I really do like how it goes and how we can kind of go back and forth and have that audience of the people born in that time so that when I'm talking, like you kind of know where I'm coming from. But I also have some other ideas that I'm thinking about actually creating another podcast about some stuff that I just don't add into this because I feel like that's just off subject or it's not nostalgic enough that it'll keep people listening for that reason. So, but if you are interested in that other stuff, like I want to do one about like, taking care of a loved one in dementia, like in a sense, because I already had to take care of my dad. He didn't have dementia, but like I wanted to do something about that. I also wanted to do something about life in general. I was doing a vlog on that. Thought that would be better than a podcast, but I think a podcast would be a good avenue to go down. All right. So anyway, that was my little bit of a rant about family dynamic. It was not as short as all the rest of them. It's like 48 minutes already. I will be editing it, so you're not going to see all the 48 minutes or hear the 48 minutes or see it. I'm thinking about also putting in some reels and shorts of I have videos that go along with all of these episodes because on OBS Studio, I have the video going as well as the audio. I just take the audio. So what I'm thinking about doing is going back with the video, taking some areas that were of the reels, so like highlights, and like put that in because like I said, I'm getting actually a pretty good amount of people going through the my website and Spotify and iTunes. That's actually got like pumped up a little bit, and getting a good amount of listens per day, and I'm pleased with this. I'm really, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope that means you're enjoying it. So if you have any suggestions, please leave a comment. You can comment, like it's up on YouTube. You can comment on that. And I don't know if you can comment on, but I think you can comment on the website as well. So whatever you want to do. I'm interested. Or on my Facebook page. I have one that's specifically for this podcast. So it's That 80s Child if you want to look it up. It's on Facebook. It has just its own page for the podcast alone because I have an author page that's for the writing and the blog, which I need. I'm going to be doing a massive cleanup of my website. We're going to make it like nice and like trimmed down, and I'm not getting rid of the stuff. I'm just making it like look nicer and have it like, the menu look prettier because I have like a whole list of things that I wanted to change and update wherever that list went to. But I have a list of things I need to change on the website. So that's something else I got to do. All right. Well, anyway, thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much for checking out all the other episodes. You can get all the episodes on my website on GabrielleCataldi.com, on Spotify, on iTunes, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. I also have it uploaded directly to YouTube now because Google podcasts have gone away. And they're like, you can transfer it over to YouTube, which I was going to do anyway. So it's all there too. So yeah. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this wasn't too much of a rant for you. That might be a turnoff, but I think it's definitely something that needed to be talked about, and I don't mind talking about it. So yeah. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. This has been Gabrielle with That 80s Child, the Generation Y, and I hope you check out the rest and check out the website. Follow, like, subscribe to my That 80s Child YouTube channel as well because I will have other things up there soon. Thank you again for listening. I appreciate you. Bye.